As Taliban's military commission chief is among the 8 killed in a military operation carried out by Afghan forces in Ghazni province. The operation was conducted in Qarabagh district. The Ministry of Interior has said that Maulawi Sahar was killed in the operations. Now, Taliban has not commented on this claim. Let's quickly go across to Islamabad, where Anas is joining us. Anas, this is indeed a very, very important piece of news that we are getting in at the moment. This especially after the 2-day peace talks that happened. The timing is what actually strikes our attention, because let's not forget that, Zalmay Khalilzad has already spoken, or rather tom-tommed, about how peace talks are moving in the right direction. What do you say about the timing of the Ghazni operation that's just taken place?
Well, Akansha, something that we are forgetting is that this is rather a tit-for-tat move, because yesterday the chief intelligence officer for Wardak province was assassinated by the Taliban. Remember, the Taliban have already launched this spring offense in Afghanistan. They call it Al-Khandak, the Al-Khandak operation. We're seeing time-to-time updates. Remember, the Taliban do not recognize the Afghan army. We saw contradictory statements coming in during that intra-Afghan dialogue as well. But Maulawi Sahar, the Taliban chief commission for that militant activities, he has been assassinated. But what we understand is that this is indeed a forward move from the Afghan forces as reaction to what happened yesterday when the Taliban assassinated the intelligence chief for the Wardak province. Yes, Akansha.
Right. Anas, it's important to also talk about that over here. What we are looking at is a leverage strategy coming in from the Taliban, because let's not forget that when the peace talks happened, there were no government officials which were a part of the talks. In fact, the talks were marked by political opponents of the Ghani government at the moment. So how do you analyze this entire scenario?
Well, absolutely. The Taliban do see this as some leverage as well. But remember, as Zalmay Khalilzad has said it yesterday as well, that there is no ceasefire until everything is finalized. Until and unless the Afghan Taliban and US side they reach a ceasefire negotiation deal that is to come after the withdrawal arrangement is done, then only we can see such offences being stopped or being coming to a halt, be that from the Taliban side or the Afghan army side. Because something that is very interesting as well that is being overlooked in all of this is the fact that when the shadow governor for Taliban was assassinated in December by the US forces, that was just about 15 days before when the US and Taliban were to sit down and formally talk. We saw some strong protests coming in as well on that, and then later after that the US side they had assured the Taliban that they will not be attacking them as such. Again, with the launch of the spring offense from the Taliban side, that does come in question. Something that is very interesting in all of this is the release of Anas Haqqani, the youngest son of Jalaluddin Haqqani, who was held captive, who was arrested by the Afghan security forces from Khost in 2014. So if we analyze the situation, this is more of a triangle or a troika that has to go. So the Taliban are talking to the US are taking the Afghan government into the loop, and the Afghan government then restrain or refrain themselves from taking any actions in view of the negotiations or the updates or the talks that the US side briefs them on. So if at all a ceasefire is agreed upon, what we're looking at, that is to happen likely in April, then the ceasefire would not just be for the US forces on the Taliban, but in the larger picture, the Afghan forces will be part of it as well. Yes,
Anas, you rightly mentioned about the troika, and also to highlight to our viewers that US at the moment is of course not completely pacified, because I'd also like to quote a report in the New York Times which has clearly mentioned that US has heightened attacks on Taliban in a push towards peace in Afghanistan. This is today's report in the New York Times. So there are also certain conditions that US is looking for Taliban to actually provide them. Your take on this?
Well, certainly US has put forward some conditions, but remember, in all of this, the role of Pakistan does come of greater importance over here, because what I can confirm that when Zalmay Khalilzad was in Pakistan in October, and in fact in December as well, during that 6th to 8th of December, his first trip in Islamabad during the month of December, because he did 2 trips, remember, and the Pakistani side had time and again emphasizes that if the Taliban retaliate, because that was the Taliban's long-standing demand as well, that they are not as organized as the US Army is. They have some disgruntled factions, those who have to be tamed or getting back into the fold. There is some time and it will be time consuming. So the Taliban had through the Pakistani side had requested the US side that if at all the Taliban retaliate, the US side should not be retaliating, because again the note that was used was that since US Army is an organized group compared to that of the Taliban, so therefore it is rather easier to control the US Army and not let them retaliate compared to that of the Taliban.
Right.
So, but by and large, the US does see with the launch of that spring offense, we're seeing the US forces being attacked under that banner of Al Khandak, the Operation Al Khandak as the Taliban specify it. We are seeing time and again that the US forces being attacked as well, and the Taliban spokesperson clearly takes ownership of it. So until and unless, as I said, a ceasefire is reached, a peace agreement is reached, this is likely to continue. This will continue. Remember, this is not the first high-profile assassination
the peace
of a
agreement
Taliban leader. Just